Welcome back to the Daily Dose of Dopamine. I'm Susan. This is Robert. You guys know that. This is my buddy. Who are you? Frederick, who I've known for, I don't know, 10 years?
Roughly.
Frederick lives in Indiana in the town where I went to school, to college. And he's just one of the most fun people. So I had to hang on to him.
And he's got the F in his name. I noticed that. Frederick and fun and all that.
And he tipped me off that Goodwill is a great place to find dictionaries that we can tear out the F word pages, and we paid $1 a piece.
Yeah, it's just going to go to half price. And you want to go to dictionaries where people, the Goodwill, where people get rid of the dictionaries they got when they graduated high school and they got 7 of them.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Or realize they have Google. So,
yeah. Frederick, what do you think about this idea of tearing out the pages in that sense? And kind of, I mean, because I feel like, well, what do you think about it? Let me just send that broadly to you.
Books are fetishized. And so the idea of pulling a page out of a book is problematic because everyone's like, oh, you're destroying a book. I'm destroying a $1 thing from Goodwill.
Okay. What about writing or underlining?
Oh, I wrote in all my books in college. I bought these badass little architectural micron pens. I have a .005 nib and archival ink, and I could literally like write between the lines in the books. I mean, there's a word for that, interlineations, literally like writing between the lines.
That's a word.
And
That's
so
crazy. That's
yeah,
funny.
it's a whole thing.
Do you think that's sacrilegious to underline?
No. You know what it made me think of? It made me think of Dead Poets Society. You remember that when Robin Williams was there? And immediately he was doing that. I think because I love the way you said it, Frederick. You know, there is this idea that the book is the end all. It's the spirit of what the book contains. It's only one form, right? You know, it's really magical to me, the transfer that can happen, that someone could put this into print, someone else can read it and get something maybe even intended or beyond what the author intended. So
you're delving into dangerous territory. I studied critical theory, and the idea of intentional meaning versus unintentional meaning, authorial fallacy and whatnot are hot ticket items, hot button items with those of us who studied that. So
because intent has been a big part of the work that we've done together.
I studied with a guy who was friends with Samuel Beckett.
Oh, cool.
And he wrote the preface for one of Samuel Beckett's collections. And Beckett got the preface back and wrote in crayon, apparently, on the top of the page, U equals unintended. And just went through everything that my colleague had said, and just said, yeah, I never intended that, I never intended that, I never intended that, I never intended that. Because you might write something that's much more clever than you intended, and someone looks at it and goes, oh, that makes an interesting point about homelessness in America. And you're like, I had nothing to do with that. Doesn't mean it didn't make the point, you just didn't intend it.
Right. Yeah, I think it takes a tremendous amount, I think, of trust and humility as an artist to let that part go. So, you know, you see artists fight for their intention. And it's like, once you put it out to me, it almost doesn't matter what your intention was. If it gets met, maybe you're validated. But the fact is you put it out, other people are fair. It's reasonable for them to put their perspective on it.
And then you got George Lucas, who wouldn't leave his damn hands off the Star Wars trilogy. He kept releasing them. But, you know. I'm sorry, but Han shot first. It's just a thing. So
it's a big part of Robert's world too. So
Han shot first. If you disagree, we're not friends.
Yeah, no, that absolutely reasonable, and there's no way frame by frame George didn't know that either. You know, and so, you know, when you're that careful with a thing, there are going to be factual misses sometimes, because it's like, I want it so bad, I'm seeing it the way I want to rather than what it is. And yeah, that brings forward a whole nother kind of discussion. You're right about, you know, how deeply we hold on to things and the fight to be right, you know.
So before too long, Robert's going to be writing is it called a thesis or a dissertation?
This is a dissertation.
And he got to do that a few years ago.
Yeah.
And is the same thing going to apply, that you have an intent and you think you're saying this, and you're at risk of your committee going, huh?
Oh yeah. Well, you experienced that, I'm guessing, Frederick.
Best piece of advice I'm going to give you. One, there are no good dissertations. There are only finished ones. It's fact of life, because otherwise you'll kill yourself.
Yeah.
And the other thing is like, if you get to the committee level or the defense level and there's a problem, it's not your fault. It's your advisors. He did a bad job.
I tell you what, that it matches a lot of my experience already, because I'm on my third advisor, and I had a systematic review that didn't go well. And I was because of that, lack of guidance and committee,
I had an
misalignment.
advisor die.
Wow. That's a way to be off the committee. Yeah. Yeah. So I thank you for those words of wisdom, and absolutely feel it too, even within, my systematic review leading into that same type of thing. You mentioned about you could die. Yeah, I know I could write myself to death and never finish. I thankfully have a deadline in a week and a half, and it terrifies me. And it also says, you know what? It's going to be what it's going to be. And then,
Is it good enough?
what do you think about that, Frederick? The point, and we're right about time, but I want to give you the final word on this. How do you know when to let go of something that you're working
You know
on?
what they call the guy who graduates first in his class from medical school? Valedictorian. You know what they call the guy who graduates last in his class from medical school? Doctor.
Doesn't
Get done is the bottom line.
Get done. I mean, you can set all sorts of goals for yourself. If you set too many, you don't get accomplished. You don't get accomplished any of them.
Yeah.
Set reasonable goals. Sometimes on my to-do list for my day, I will put, something like eat. Oh, look, I got something accomplished. Because sometimes just crossing something off the list is useful.
Validating.
I agree.
I solve the world problems. I'm not going to get that to that one today.
Right.
Make $1 million. Oh, that's got to be back burner too. Oh, look, I successfully dressed myself. I got to trash it. You got to set goals you can meet.
I'm going to leave it there. That's a beautiful daily dose. Frederick, thanks so much. Set the goals, the ones you can meet. That's it.